Greetings, loyalists and heretics. Welcome to Iron and Ceramite, where we once again enter the warp without an astropath.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Iron and Ceramite podcast. My name is John and today I'm joined by Shane.
Hello.
Tom.
Hello.
And Dave.
Sorry.
That's all right. We'll roll for it.
Yeah. Hello, guys.
So, thanks for tuning into whatever is going on here today. So, as we alluded to last week in the Hobby Roundup, this week we're going to be talking about the tabletop side of things. We've been playing for nearly a year, I guess. Obviously, we've only played each other, so we're just going to sort of have a bit of a chat about how things are going, what we're learning, what we're enjoying, what we don't get, and then we're going to move on to talking about maybe starting our own Crusade forces and getting a bit of a narrative game going. So I'll kick it over to anybody who wants to start. Like, how are you enjoying playing 40k? Or Shane, like specifically 9th edition to when you've played it before?
Yeah, I don't mind kicking off. Yeah, I think 9th edition it's actually pretty good for me because it's got a lot of parallels with when I started in 2nd and 3rd edition, so the edition after Rogue Trader. Back then you had all sorts of stuff like templates, like your flamers, you had to have teardrop templates and stuff like that, so it was an auto hitting, had to cover the model with a flamer, all sorts of stuff like that, which I'm glad it's moved past templating, because that was a bit of a nightmare. You always had to have stuff like that was always getting lost or chewed up or whatever else, so it's good that that's moved away. Some of the bits that I do miss, some of the old bits of war gear used to have. There were things called vortex grenades that would like open up rifts in warp space that then just moved around the battlefield. So that they were pretty cool. But otherwise, I think the rule system is pretty good where it is now. 8th edition was simpler by all accounts, but maybe a bit too simplistic. And I know there's some people in the hobby that think it maybe 9th has swung too far the other way, but I still think it's pretty good in terms of balance the rules. I think the only bit that's difficult is maybe some of the the challenges of the codexes, and when they come out and how much it's affecting maybe some of the 8th edition armies that are still running their codexes. But having said all of that, even if you go to like the tournament scene and stuff like that, people are still winning with those old armies now, those older armies, if they build the right lists. And I think that's probably the bit that's difficult, is that you have to be really flexible with the lists and units you have if you're going to run 8th edition armies in this edition. But it can be done. But I'm enjoying it. I think obviously at the moment I'm running Space Wolves and Necrons, and the Space Wolves in 9th edition, at least anyway, are undefeated. They've had a draw with the Necron Crusade. That was on our games day that we had many months ago. But otherwise, they've done it right. And as I said, the Space Wolves, like most Marine armies, they're fair, I know what I'm doing with Space Marine, so it's easy to kind of pick it up and run. The Necrons have been far more of a challenge. They are definitely a gamey army, and they haven't got. They seem to be really swingy. They'll swing from one extreme to another, and so far, as I said, I've had mixed results, and it's only been extremes. They've either won really comfortably or they've been smashed into the ground, and I think that's quite frustrating. As someone playing a new force, because you want to see how they're going to go. You want to see where maybe you should invest your time. And I think the trouble with all of that is that they've got quite a few different units that are available, but Games Workshop, I suppose, were quite clever in that they didn't really give you any of them in the box sets. So the stuff that comes in either Imperium or even the Start Collecting box for Necrons, not a particularly balanced side, so you always have to buy more for the Necrons, which is a bit tough. I am really looking forward to eventually getting Thousand Suns out on the tabletop at some point, even if it's only 500 points, just to begin with. Unless I have one of Dave's mad moments of inspiration and paint 1,500 points in short order. I am really looking forward to getting them out, because that will be entirely different for me. I've never played any chaos faction before, so I am really looking forward to that. And they got a lot of psychic shenanigans, which I think is a really underutilized phase in the game, especially with us, like the way that we've played so far. Like, you can just have one, like in my Space Wolves list, just having Niall can totally swing a battle in my favor, because he's able to do stuff. I think with very underutilized part of the game. So I'm looking forward to trying to run 1,000 Suns. But overall, really happy with how it's going. I think, as I said, the rule set, there are complexities to it, but there's never been an edition without complexities. And I think, we've probably got to that stage now where we are, like, just playing against any of you. I've seen it with you, John, especially in the last match I had against you, Tom, as well. Like, everyone knows their armies so much better now than when we first started. So the games aren't necessarily that much quicker, but what they are is there's, people just know what they're doing and what stratagems they're going to run and when they're going to run them and what their units do. So I think we're coming to that point where it feels like it's the right time to add those extra bits in, like, open war scenarios with the cards, or trying out a few Crusade battles. I think, we're naturally coming to that point of knowing our lists and what we like to run with our comfortable factions fairly easily, and then going, right, what are we going to do next? How are we going to develop this? And like, you and John and Tommy, for example, you're going up to 3,000 points onslaught battles. It's that kind of, we're almost comfortable with the anything between 1,000 and 2,000 points. It's like, right, what do we do that's different? So I think everyone has got a fairly good understanding of what's going on with the game. That's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do agree. I think that everyone's come on quite a lot. I think our first few games, and I was looking at the rules, and I think everyone's the same. And we thought, what the fuck have we done? Like, we don't know what we're doing, and we made so many mistakes early on. And every game was a learning experience, and we were learning new things. But I think we got to a point now where everyone's helped out, correcting each other and saying, actually, let's check this out. Let's ask Glenn. Let's ask Shane. Let's see.
How many games do we have where it's like, me and you, like, we do something, we're like, and we go, I don't think you can do that. And we go, well, I think I can. And we put it in the group to say, we'll ask Shane or Glenn, and they don't bloody look at it for ages. And we're like, we've gone past it by then. We're like, and then they
we'll
give
roll
us
up for it and we'll ask
completely different.
But I think we've learned quite well. And like you say, Shane, I think people are starting to understand their armies, especially the other two. Obviously, I've got the new Codex supplement to sort of contend with, and it's difficult building a list around how I want to build it, because I haven't got the units that I want to build a list around at the moment. I've got to wait until Santa brings them, unfortunately. But I think especially Tommy, his Imperial Fists list, he's very, very good, and he's learning what works well, and he's very, very difficult. I haven't beaten him with his Imperial Fist yet. And John, with your Death Guard as well. Like, you know how to utilize your HQs, you know what strats to use, and you're getting comfortable with sort of contingencies and what to bring in and where, which is part of playing the game, isn't it? It's understanding your army, understanding where to go with it when things go wrong and things don't go the way you originally planned. I think that's quite important, that I found, is that you start off with these grand strategies and it doesn't work out the way that you think it does, and you've got to adapt. But I think I've struggled. I know that I feel like I've struggled the most. I've had a few very good victories, but quite a few humiliating defeats as well. But I've learned from it, and I think that Tommy and John, you've obviously learned a bit quicker. But Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
I mean, Shane, how many games have we had now? 6?
Yeah, I think so. Something like that, yeah.
And I've only won 1 against Shane. And it's the only one that we've recorded too. So I'll take that. That's about 95% of the games.
I was going to say that's why when me and Dave play, we will be recording it as well, but only for no other reason than to make sure that you are no longer the only undefeated player on record.
Well, enjoy editing and uploading that video.
We get a draw.
Yeah, we'll get a draw. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, so I think I played with you guys. Obviously, it was we were all sort of butting heads and figuring it out. But I played against Shane quite a lot before you guys played with him. So I think I got a bit of an advantage of playing with someone who knew more of what they were doing. Although I lost horribly, I always learned a lot playing those first few games. And it was like, because that's the thing, isn't it? It's all well and good reading it until you actually stick it on the table and roll the dice and understand what's going on. And then at the end of the game, you go, oh, fuck, there's 3 abilities here. I didn't even look at the whole game. So, yeah. So I think I had a good bit of help from you at the start, Shane, as well, definitely.
I think
I'd go and tell Dave and Tom what we did, but I'd probably get it wrong when I was explaining it. I'd be like, I think this is what me and Shane did.
It's remembering all of your little specific rules. That's the thing, which you now do, John. Right? So, like as I said, the last couple of games we played, it's like when we first played, it was almost like I'm sure I've got a stratagem for this, and then you just can't find it. And you're like, well, not to worry. But whereas now you just know, right? Okay, when that happens, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. And it's whenever you're learning a new army, that's the bit that takes time. You've got to play them quite a bit. And that's definitely what's happening with the Necrons, is they've got lots of stuff to try and remember. Whereas Marines, it's helpful when you're playing against other Marine players as well, because Dave, Tom, and Glenn has obviously played Marines as well for a while. Like everyone's using the same rule sets, just with their own unique little flavors. So you're going to remember like which doctrine you're in, and which, and even if you do forget, so is the other player, so it's still even. Whereas the Death Guard have got loads of rules as well, and sometimes, as I said, being on the other side of the Death Guard, especially if you're losing, you do sit there and you're like, okay, I wish I had a copy of that codex just so I could double check.
It's always out. You can always look at it. And I mean, honestly, most of the time when I play, Dave does it the most. When I'll say, right, I'm going to do this, and he goes, "What? No, let me look at that." You're the only one who's done it, where you're like, actually come over and look through the book. I don't believe it. And then you walk off going, "That's fucking ridiculous."
That's fucking outrage.
That's part of the joy of the game, right?
That is one of my favourite things.
When I go and sulk back.
But it's the idea that you've got to have trust between both of you to understand your own rules.
Yeah.
And accept afterwards that if someone did get them wrong, they go, "Oh, actually, last time we played, maybe we did that slightly wrong." And you go, "Okay, fair enough. Well, we know this time." And that's the bit that is quite nice about it, is just that trust between players. That's like, no, we give you shit for it, John, but we're only pulling your leg in most circumstances.
Most.
But it's like that's you got to trust each other to know your rules.
Wait till I show you all them blank cards I've got in my strategy pack.
That's it. The old white print at home Death Guard strategy card.
Can't kill this model. Well, and that's it as well. And this is the thing, like what you said, you guys are all obviously Marine players, so as well, like Dave said, the disadvantage, you guys are all sort of as well. You can learn when you're playing each other because you've got similar rules. Every time you're like, I'm in a doctrine, I'm like, what the why have your rules suddenly changed in this and another round? It blows my mind every time. So I'm stuck with like whatever I've picked, I've got to lump it. And then all of a sudden, like Dave, the Black Templars all the time, he's like, right, now I can do this magic thing where I can just appear and smash your head off for no reason. It does my head in.
I think that's exactly word for word what it says in the book.
Yeah, pretty much.
Does, well. Honestly, the last game we played, you ruined me, and there was nothing. Sometimes it comes down to the dice, but I just from the start, I was just like, right, they're dead. What do I do now? They're dead. Oh, right, well, I'll do this. Nope, they're dead.
That was the one game that I've played where the stars aligned, the dice rolled beautifully, and everything went well. And I think that I dropped about 10 points in the whole game.
Yeah.
But that was, again, it was sort of like I had an idea in my head. This is what I want to do, and it worked out. But what I struggle with is when it doesn't work out, and adapting very quickly. And obviously, I'm very lucky because I've got my Codex supplement. But I'm also a bit unlucky because all the rules that I was starting to get my head round and work out and say, oh, Emperor's Will works really well because I can advance and then charge. And then Devout Push works really well because I can do this and that. And then they tweaked all the rules on it. So I've got to learn it again. So that's my excuse for the time being, at least. But yeah, I think that's the thing that I found hardest is just the way that the rules slightly change, and it changes how you play the army completely, which is quite hard when you're a new player anyway and you're starting to pick it up. But I'm getting there. But I think this is a bit slower than you two.
But then that's to be expected, though, isn't it? Like you say, with the change in the codex, it's learning a lot of new stuff quickly. Yeah. And before we wasn't experts anyway, was we? So we're already not experts, and then you're having to learn another load of stuff. Yeah. But our last game of the day, because the last three we played, obviously the first two, obviously I think we're about. I'm beating you by a couple of games overall, but you beat me at the start when I was using my Blood Angels quite a bit. And over the last three games we played, the first two, I obliterated you. But in the last one, that could have gone either way, and that
it was really a lot closer.
Depended on a couple of charges. So you're obviously getting the hang of it now, and I think next time we play will be like on an even tilt.
Yeah, the thing with the Templars as well is that I'm quite chilled out with it because I haven't got the list that I want. Because I want to run a narrative list. I want the Crusader squad. No, in terms of, like, if I lose, I get pissed off. I think everyone does. Is that you don't want to lose. Everyone is naturally competitive. You don't want to lose. But I'm more at peace than if I had the list that I really wanted to, like, this is the list that I really want to bring, and then I fucked it up, I'd be even more pissed off. Whereas now I'm sort of like, I haven't got a Crusader squad. I haven't got the Blade Guard veterans. I haven't got the Redemptor Dreadnoughts. All of the things that people are saying that really work well for the Black Templars now. I'm not running, so I'm still in that state of I've got an excuse in my back pocket when it all goes wrong. When it all goes right, I'm like, yeah, it's a master plan. But when it goes wrong, I've still got that in my back pocket. But yeah, I do want to run quite a narrative list. And obviously this is all for fun at the end of the day. It is nice to win. And it is nice to see the look on other people's faces when you're sort of like, I've won. But I do want to run quite a narrative list. And I don't know how competitive that's going to be as well. But hopefully it's a shame that Glenn's not here because I think he's got quite a good outlook on playing. He's quite chilled about it. He plays fun lists. Like he brought 3 dreadnoughts and a character once, and it was fun to play against. It was just a laugh. So I don't think I'm ever going to be one of these people who sort of chases that tournament level. I'd love to have a competitive list. I'd love to go to a tournament, but I don't think I'm going to be one of these people that goes, all right, I'm going to bring 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts with exactly the same loadout, and then it turns out in the next edition you can't do it. Like I think with the new update come out, the Orcs have been heavily affected by it, and AdMech as well. I think have been quite affected by it. I don't want to be one of these people who just buy stuff just to chase the tournament win. I picked Templars because they're the coolest, in my opinion, the coolest faction, and I want to play an army that would play like the Templars play and be fun to do it. So, and I know by doing that I'm going to lose a lot of games, but hopefully I can have a lot of fun doing it. So
I don't think you'll lose as many as you think you will. I think anyone that's playing narrative, it gets closer to 50-50. I think that's just the way it is. I don't think really any of our lists, maybe the exception of some of your lists, Tom, maybe not by design, but certainly by the makeup of them. Now, I don't think any of our lists are really tournament friendly lists so far. Like they've all been much more narrative type lists than anything else. And I agree with you. I think chasing the meta, as they like to call it, is a quick way to spend lots of money and not have a lot of fun. Some people love tournaments, and that's fine. But like, I was thinking about it the other day. Like a tournament game, you turn up there, you play, like they have 2.5 hour limits to the games, and in most tournament games they don't go beyond 3 turns, because you've got in most cases you've got a clear winner at that point, and that's it. You concede and move on. You don't get like the full 5 turn back and forth, the narrative moments to deciding how much you're going to play, how much you're not. It's a completely, for some people love it and it's a part of the hobby, right? But I think it's it's something that you've got to be really committed to wanting to do. And I think if you go to a tournament with pretty much most of the lists that we're playing at the moment, you'd almost be prepared to lose your 4 or 5 games and just go for the experience, just because of the way that tournament players play. It is, I mean, we're getting better at it in terms of thinking about the objectives and stuff like that. But it's almost the mentality is almost beyond that. Like you've got to, you'd be building your list up. And I don't know if anyone saw it, SN Battle Reports. They did like a whole charity stream. Winter's SEO won it and stuff like that. And he took a specific list. So he always plays narrative, but he took a specific list, which was a Deathwing. Yeah, it's Deathwing, the Dark Angels. To just terminate spam effectively. And it wasn't designed to do anything other than not get shifted. And so he'd just take Oath's Moment every game and then just run into the middle and sit there for the 5 turns. And that was it. And he ended up winning because people just couldn't break it down. But there's only so much fun you can have with that.
Yeah.
And that's, so I think, I think especially for us as we're in it where we are now, still early stage, I think it's much more fun to still stick to narrative side stuff. And the only reason I called your list out, Tom, is because the way you build some of your lists is how you would see them in tournaments where they go like really heavy on maybe unusual choices for detachments, like Vanguard detachments, like, ones that are heavy on elites compared to the rest of us who might just go, a couple of patrols or a battalion. And that's the difference, is you get people that will go, they'll go really heavy on all the elites and just see how it works out.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, like Dave touched on as well, and like you said, Shane, it's a balancing act, really, isn't it? I mean, you want to win, like Dave said, You do want to win, of course, but you want to win on your terms, and then you can say it's me that created that win, sort of a lot, rather than just watching someone on the battle report who's really good and knows what they're doing and copying them.
Yeah,
you want it to be in the right way, and for you to actually think, I come up with all that, and it was my brain that won against whoever you're playing against, sort of thing, rather than, I mean, what is it, the Drukari, isn't it, that were really strong, and everyone just kept using them, I can't remember what they called them, barge things.
Dark Lances. They had the Raiders with the Dark Lances.
Really boring. Like, I couldn't do that every single game, do the same thing. And well, you're right, man.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is that I was talking, funnily enough, we were talking with Tom a little while ago, and I was saying like a dream Templar list would just be like full-on Crusader squads. And if you just had like 60 Crusaders coming across the field, like, it wouldn't be very competitive because blast weapons would just rip them to shreds, but it would just be a lot of fun to go against. It would be a very thematic army to go against. Maybe one day I'll get to that point, but I think that would be a lot more fun than, like I said earlier, running a list with. So for the meta for Black Templars at the moment is 2 Impulsors, 3 Redemptors, a couple of squads of Blade Guard, and either Assault Intercessors or a Crusader squad. It just doesn't seem as fun as going down the narrative route, and I think that's something that we're quite lucky with our group, is that everyone sort of plays very much the same. We want to have fun. It is about winning. Don't get me wrong. It's always about winning, but we also want to play quite narratively. And it takes away a little bit of that competitiveness, a little bit.
I think you'd be, you're right. I think you'd be surprised with the Crusader span though, because I know blast weapons are a thing, right? But actually, we don't see our lists until we don't change our lists after we've shown them to each other.
No.
So it will only be me logging it now, going right. At some point, Dave's going to turn up with 60 Crusaders. I've always got to make sure I've got at least one blast weapon in my list, which now I'm going to do. But previously, I wouldn't have done. Because otherwise, like, we don't really have many. Like, I know, John, you occasionally have some blast in your. Is it the Blight Haulers?
Blight Haulers and the Plague Burst Crawler.
Yeah, and I'm always going to run at least 10 Necrons if I'm running Necrons and a blob. If I'm running Marines, I'd never run more than 10 anyway. But in the next, and I'm like, they're just going to get mullered by the blast. But sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing as well. Like, I was like, I remember, so the game that's on the channel that I beat you in, I was like, right, well, I did pretty well. I used some blast, got some Necrons off the table, like the Warriors, got them off the table. Because one of mine, I can't remember what it's called now, but when you tally up your kills, that was one of my secondaries. So obviously I went, well, that worked, so I'll focus on that, because I saw your list. I was all right, that's what I'm going to do. And in that game, I got quite a lot of points because I killed a lot of Necron Warriors, but they kept getting back up. I was so focused on, this is what I'm doing. I'm just going to take out Necrons and Necrons and Necrons, ignoring the fact they were getting back up. And actually, all of his decent unit, especially that Shard, just walked up and started slicing people's heads off. I was like, no, I'm just going to keep focusing on the Necrons, because it was just like, that's where my brain went. I was like, well, this is what I want to work. And it didn't. Yeah, you get tunnel vision sometimes. And I'm really bad for it. I have an idea. I go, this is how I'm going to play. And I'll just ignore. I think, well, I'll ignore the Shard. I'll try and go after other stuff. The Shard's the thing going around and taking everything off the table. I'm like, no, I'm not interested in that, because I know I can't beat it.
That really worked in my favour in that game.
Do you know what? Like, and the thing is, it's like, as good as it is to win, obviously I don't want to lose. Because it's like, I've spent all this money just to lose. But I don't mind losing in a game like the 2 games I had against you, like Dave, where you absolutely just ruined me on that game. Like, there was nothing I could do. As horrible as it is to watch, I really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed the game with you, Shane, even though I lost horribly as well. Because I just like seeing the characters do cool stuff. I know they're not really doing it, we're doing it. I enjoy it. I think it's quite cool, and a bit of imagination that goes into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't hate losing. I just hate losing and Dave knowing about it.
The thing is, every time I lose, I do take something from it. I do sort of think next time.
Take it personally.
Rage, did you say? Yeah. I go, next time I'll do this, next time I'll do that. Obviously, I do want to win. But with Tom, I sort of, especially his Imperial Fist list, is very difficult for me to get into combat with him. Once I'm in combat, and it's been since the new Codex supplement, even with playing games against John, it always was before with the last Codex. As soon as I got into combat, I was suffering with the Death Guard, but that's changed now. And the same again with playing with Tom, is that I think the Black Templars really are probably second best to the Blood Angels in terms of melee for Marine armies. And as soon as I get into melee, I feel great about it, but it's very difficult to get into melee. So it's just working out how to do it. But I'd like to say, every time I'm taking something from it and I change it, and I find that quite fun as well, in thinking that didn't work for me, but it was a lot of fun. How am I going to change that next time to deal with Tom? And like you said, Tom, like 2 games, you absolutely annihilated me with your Eradicator blob. And last time I took out most of your Eradicators. It was a very close game that was basically decided on a couple of charges. So I do feel like I'm learning a lot from it, but at the same time, I don't like to lose. But it's just one of those things, isn't it?
Yeah. But, like the last game, because me and Tom, we haven't played against each other in quite a while, but I remember when you first played, it was all about what characters look cool and what you liked.
Well,
and you used to, like, you obviously lose quite a lot, and you bought up about 5,000 dice.
well, originally, I mean, I played you with my first ever Imperial list, didn't I? Imperial Fists list. Obviously, I didn't know much what I was doing then, but that was the closest I've got to beating you or to drawing with you. I know you won in the end, and we didn't get to the end of the game, but you would have won.
Yeah.
And you know, I think before that, I was completely and utterly, like Dave said, I was completely playing narratively, but like say with the balancing act, it was also really soul destroying to lose every single game. I know I was getting a couple of wins here and there, but majority of the time I was just running in and thinking, Blood Angels, we're going to tear everything to shreds, and then just getting killed every single time, especially against you, John. That, like, every time was just pretty much an annihilation. But now I'm thinking more logically about it, and even with my Blood Angels, when I played against Shane, I had a complete and utter understanding of what I was going to do before I did it. I mean, obviously, if the dice went the right way, and they did, luckily. But yeah, I mean, playing against you with the Imperial Fist that time, and when I got, I took out your Plague Burst Crawler, didn't I?
Yeah.
First thing, and I saw your face drop a little, and I thought, yeah, this is the army for me, like that. I think because I couldn't have done that with my Blood Angels. But yeah, I think that's my number one army, the Imperial Fists, and Blood Angels would just be like a support chapter. But I'm definitely gonna keep switching it up for you guys. That's what I've been doing lately, like with Shane. Everyone thought I was going to go with Imperial Fists because I've won 4 in a row with them, and I thought, no, I'm going to go with Blood Angels. Hopefully that'll catch him out a bit, and I think I'm going to keep doing that because otherwise you'll figure me out.
Well, that's why you've got 2 armies though, isn't it? So you don't have to stick to one.
Yeah.
Mix and match.
But I'm looking forward to our match, John.
3,000 points. It's going to be crazy.
And we're not starting till like 7:30 at night as well.
I know.
Oh, fucking hell.
Jesus Christ.
Well, the good thing is I'm on nights the next day, so I can stay up all night. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I know.
I'll be staying up all night anyway, so I might as well stay at Tom's. Yeah.
It's going to be a very long night.
Well, yeah. It's going to be a 2-hour setup just to get everything on the bloody table.
Well, that's the thing, is that with the amount of firepower that you both are going to have, like, if it goes well in the first turn, like, I can't remember, I think it was Tom. Tom took out about 700 points in my first round before I even moved a model.
That's depressing, isn't it?
Yeah. And
700 points in a game.
And that was, like I said, like, I was thought, fuck it, I'm not going to win this now. But
I was going to jump out the window, honestly.
I felt like it. I felt like literally just
very slowly picked up his executioner and turned around, and he was like shell shocked.
It was horrible. It's just like everything was falling on that, and I was thinking in my head, I was like, I had this great plan, and within Tom's first turn, it was shit. But I think it'd be quite interesting with 3,000 points, the amount of damage that you could do in the first turn. They could sway it quite a lot. But
I think with that many points, I don't know. I think you've got to be deployment becomes really important, as does things like deep striking and strategic reserves.
Yeah,
because you don't need to have it all on the table. That's the thing. No. You've got a full size table, so you've got the biggest space you can have. Tom, if you're playing on Tom's table, he's got lots of good terrain with lots of different features as well. So there's plenty of stuff you can do with deployment and spreading those units out across the entire, like, battle turns, as it were. So you don't commit everything. It's quite rare to get 700 in one turn. That's quite, Dave, unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't go your way, right?
Yeah. To be fair, half of that was the executioner, but it was a good shooting round for Tom in that turn. But I think that's one of the things that I need to learn more from, is keeping things off the table.
Yeah.
Because the only thing I'll do is, like, if it got grab shoots, maybe my Spressers or Reavers, and then my Terminators. I don't think I've ever used strategic reserves. Perhaps I should with a Templar army. And it's just that learning experience of what works well and what needs to happen. And in the bigger games, I will. But I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it? Because you sort of just want to put everything on the table, and I'm just going to run across, and this is all going to work perfectly.
Yeah.
And it's hard to think tactically sometimes that perhaps I should keep a couple of them really important units back, because if I get first turn, then these are the ones that are going to be doing the damage.
Yeah.
And it's that sort of roll the dice is a gambling. It's at the end of the day, if you get first turn, then great. I could get right up the board and I could do the damage to them, but sometimes you need to be a bit more sensible.
Like, I painted it. I want it to be on the table the entire game. Like, that's the mentality. Like, I'm not deep striking it because I like these. I want to play with them, and then you watch them get like taken out. You think, oh, that's not fun. Or you put them on the table and forget to bloody move them. Which is even worse. Which I've done it recently. I know, Tom, you used to do it quite a lot. You just leave things. That's frustrating.
Yeah, I used to deep strike with my Terminators, didn't I? Into a place where if I didn't make the charge onto that one small unit that I've for some reason gone for, I was literally stranded away from all the objectives, any terrain, any of your army. Just that one small unit would just look up my Terminators. I used to do it every game, and I did it with you as well, didn't I, Dave? Kept deep striking and then going nowhere with it. But I've learned from that.
As I said, it's because in your head you're like, oh, brilliant. Terminators can deep strike. I'm going to put them in deep strike, and then as you said, you get tunnel vision. You're like, I'm going to deep strike them. That's going to happen, and then you're like, by the time you've deep striked them, you go, what have I done that for?
It was weird. It was like almost like that's what they do. It's almost like that's what they have to do.
Yeah.
So the brainwash. That's what their ability is. So you have to do that. And I just didn't think. Well, I think you said it first, Shane. Or maybe it was you, Dave, or maybe both of you. Just put them on a table and trudge up. If they got an invuln, a 4-up invuln, just trudge up the table with them. Not much is going to take them out with a 2+ save. And you better to have them on there and ready to do something rather than off the field and then getting stranded when they come in. So that's what I've done so far, and it's worked a lot better when I have used them.
I think
you don't use them as much anymore.
I used them against Shane, and I was definitely not going to deep strike them there with that charge.
I think that's it. I think it's the size of the battlefield you're on, as well as the points you're playing with. So as I said, 3,000 points onslaught, I'd be like, right, I'm going to deep strike some of this stuff. Obviously, you've got to be a bit careful with it, because with that many units that are going to be on the table, you're also going to get less places to deep strike them in. So you got to keep that in mind. But like, sometimes it works really well, and sometimes it doesn't. Like, as I said, one of the other bits is getting stuck in your head that it's going to be like, right, I'm going to deep strike these in behind, and it's going to be glorious because I'm going to have all of my units going one way, and I'm going to sweep up the back with the Terminators, and they'll have to deal with it. I don't think I've ever done that because it's never worked out. Like, it's just like I've deep striked them into the middle, and that works really well because it's like, suddenly it's like, shit, you've got all of your other units and now there's Terminators in there. Or worked really well against you, actually, John, the Scorpec Lord and his Veil of Darkness thing, and he it's kind of like a deep strike, but it wasn't. And again, I think that threw you because they weren't in deep strike, it's just like a relic, so it's like that. Shit, that caused a few problems.
I think I was banking on like how when we played the first time, how swingy they were. I was banking on them not doing too much and just sort of, again, it's like I was focused on what I wanted to do. I was like, well, I'm just going to ignore that and just play around it. And then I had the Shard slicing me down, and then they were just taking me out from behind. But I was like, no, I've got a plan. I'm just going to keep to it. And just everything just got whittled away.
Scorpec Lord still did fuck all. He has done nothing ever. But I still persist with him. He's such a cool model, but he does fuck all.
I've used the Demon Prince twice, and both times I played against Dave. Well, I think I've used him 3 times. First time he did all right, but he just where I deployed him was off to one side with wherever it was, and he did all right. Like, everything he come in contact with, like, he killed. It was great. But then it was like, by the time I wanted him to go and do what I wanted him to do, the game was over. I think he finished the game just sort of standing in the middle of the field doing nothing. And then like the next 2 times I played him, I can't remember what happened when I played with you the second time, but I know he died. And then when we played with you, Shane, like he just got fucking sharded straight down the middle. There was nothing I could have done, and he didn't even get. I don't even think he got to fight at all.
He didn't.
I think he got for psychic ability and just died, and it was just like I wanted him to at least have a go.
If you get wings on him, mate, I think that'll be the making of him for you. Definitely, just that little extra movement.
Yeah, it's only 2 inches, but the problem is, it's like I think I want to get him up the field. But Death Guard,
it's 2 inches, but it's also the fly keyword.
Well, it is, yeah, that is the benefit, I guess. But I want to get him up the battlefield to fight because he's big and scary. I want you to focus on him. But actually, no one else can keep up with it. Like everything else is 5 inches. All right, I've got my Lightbringer gives everyone an extra inch, which I normally forget about until it's too fucking late. Which is frustrating. And then he's there on his own. So it's like, well, he's moved up. He's a sitting duck now because there's no other units around to take any fire or hold him back, and you've got to come to him. So it's getting the balance with like a new toy, isn't it, or a new character? I mean, where's best to use it? Like both times I've used the Malignifier thing. I've put it in a shit position and it's done nothing. Like the first time I played it, Dave even was like giving me the option to move it and put it in a better place, which I was like, yeah, I've placed it. I'm just going to stick with it. What I should have done is taken up on it because it might have actually helped me change that game slightly. And then it did nothing. It was just a bit of scenery for us. The game actually hindered me because of we played on my small table sideways, and I had to send everything round it. And I was just like, fuck. Then when I played Ricochet, it just wasn't. Again, the table wasn't big enough.
I was just like, I'm just going to stay away from it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's exactly what I did. It worked so well in that game that like I said, the stars aligned. It stopped you getting to where I didn't want you to be.
Yeah.
And let me just get all the way around. So it was actually a 75-point hindrance to you rather than. I
fucked myself massively.
You actually put that building in front of your army.
The problem is, we played one of the ones, you know, when normally you start off right down the end. We played one of the games that's sideways, so you're actually a lot closer.
Yeah.
So I could not put it on the table, but I was very limited because of the scenery we already had on. I was very limited of where I could put it because when we played with you, Shane, it went on our scenery.
Yeah, I let you drop it in early. Yeah.
But when me and Dave played it, I played it as a character or a unit, so I put it on in deployment, and there was just nowhere to put it apart from that one. If I'd taken Dave's offer of moving it and putting it in that better place, fine. But I put it sort of right in the middle, and I was like, well, it's a bit of cover. Everything's got to go around it, and I sort of pushed myself away from the center. And yeah, it was just like, and the way that Dave's game was, obviously, again, getting into melee with him as quick as I did was a massive mistake because normally I'm like, Death Guard, let's get in and fight. I should have done a lot more shooting, but the game was so close. And then I walked up and sent my Terminators up to take out, what were they, some intercessors, and then your Terminators come up and just pushed them off the board. It was horrendous.
Yeah, that's
only Glenn has cleaned them that quickly before.
Yeah. I was so happy with that because it's the only time that I've ever actually destroyed a full unit of Terminators.
Yeah.
Well, your Terminators at least. But some of my stratagems are really, really good. And it's just learning what works and working out what units is best to target with those relics or strats or the sort of bits and bobs that we've got, but I'm slowly getting my head around it. And I think hopefully next time I can actually beat Tom, but obviously I've got Shane in the meantime and I don't know what he's going to bring, and we'll see.
The only thing I don't like is how unclear some of the rules are. Like
they're very, very open to interpretation.
Two people can read it, and it's like you read a rule in your own codex. Well, this is how it plays, but then someone else reads it, and they're like, well, that's not how it plays. It's like this. There's a lot of ambiguity in what it means, and sometimes you can have a rule that counteracts each other, and neither it doesn't make sense for either of you.
it's the wording of a lot of it, isn't it? Just
Yeah.
the way it's worded. Like I was saying with Dave, and it's probably going to sound silly saying it now, but what was we talking about, Dave? What was that? Oh fuck, I forgot about it now. What we was going to bring up? We was going to bring something up to the group, wasn't we? Do you remember?
Clearly
No
not.
full well, but I don't know fuck all. So
But we've done it, Dave, where we're both reading a rule and we're like, well, we're standing there looking at the same words and we both disagree of what it
this
means.
is this is how I see it. This is how you see it.
Yeah. Because we both want to see it in our own favour.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like it's really awkward.
That was it. Sorry. So basically, in the rules, it says that if you charged, you will always attack first, or you will always fight first. But there are stratagems that Dave used against me, which fair enough, you have to pay
Counter-offensive.
Counter-offensive, and he wrecked my blade guard with that. And I'd seen that in my pack, in my Space Marine data card pack, and I'd thought, well, it can't mean what I think it means, because surely that's like stupid. You know, you charge first, and it says in the book you always fight first. And in my mind, it sort of, if it had been said something like you always fight first unless, you know, and then explained when you couldn't fight first, as opposed to
Unless
saying,
Dave's used this strat.
unless Dave, well, you know, unless you use a specific strat saying that you can't, or something like that. So it's technically not always. I mean, but you know, and I just had that locked in my mind, that key word of always, and therefore I just overlooked it completely and got wrecked. What do you kill? 5 of my blade guard with your Terminators in that 2 CP you use?
Yeah.
Horrible.
That's the thing, is that when you've got Sigmund Seal on a unit, like it is horrible. Like I've wiped out a load of your blade guard, a load of John's Terminators, and when it works, it's great. But yeah, I like to say, I think I played it right, and I think using the counter offensive.
That wasn't the first combat in the turn, was it?
No, it was second. So
yeah, then that's fine. Yeah.
So that's what we thought, and I think I even said to you as well, didn't I, that because you need to use your hardest hitting unit first that you charge with, in case someone uses it. And I think that's obviously what you need to take away from that, because
you got to keep an eye on who, like, if that, again, it's a learning experience, right? So you look at it next time and you go, right, Dave's only got 1 CP, so I'll pick whatever I like, because I know he can't intervene or interrupt. But if he's got 2, you're always going to be, or any Marine player's got 2 CP, you're always going to look at it and go, okay, he could interrupt here. So, as I said, you go for the hardest hitting unit first.
Yeah, and that was just a stupid mistake on my part, because in my mind, I always like to leave without knowing that, I always like to leave the hardest hitting unit until the end.
Yeah.
I think I was even doing it just to I'll save him till the end.
Build up,
And then, but now I realise, oh god, shit, that's a really bad idea.
it was a good idea. It worked out brilliantly.
Who won?
Yeah, Dave didn't talk you out. Oh no, go ahead, Tom. Yeah, do that.
That time.
But there's like there's that little integrity to the game as well sometimes, where it's like, and I'm very grateful because everyone always points out like things that I fucking forget or do wrong or miss. But sometimes you'll stand there and they'll be like, you can just watch them like move on from something, or like move past. If you're shooting and you're going along the line and miss something big out, and you're like, do I mention it, or do I just stand here and pray that they don't remember? And then you're always like, no, are you going to use that? And you're, oh yeah, thanks. But sometimes like you forget, you're like, fuck, I'm past it. But we're quite forgiving sometimes, I think. You say, yeah, go back and do it.
I have thought about that quite a lot, like whether there's going to be a point with us when we really know what we're doing, when we say to each other, if it's a genuine mistake and you've just forgot something minor, then fine. But if it's something like that you're forgetting and that's sort of your fault because you should know your army by now, maybe there'll become a point where we say that to each other, like, if you forget, that's it, you know?
I'm playing you no more.
Yeah, but I don't sort of want to be too serious about it either, because I quite enjoy it being fair. Like when me and Dave played the last few times, we've been really fair with each other, and it's made it a lot more enjoyable, win, lose, or draw type of a thing. But
then you're in the back of your mind, you get to like that last round, you think, if I should have said no to that, because now I'm losing.
That,
you only won because I'm generous. No, but that's the thing. It's just like, as long as you know, because the thing is, if you're just going to be dicks all the time, then you're very quickly not going to want to play with certain people, and you're just going to ruin it for yourself. Cool. Right, so we'll pause for a break, and like I was saying, let's go from one game that we haven't quite mastered to another version of the game that's going to take me even longer to figure out. Shane, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, so this actually came from a few conversations between a few of us with ideas of what we want to do next. I know Glenn's mentioned it, and I think he's discussed it with you as well, Tom. The idea of maybe sort of branching out a bit and trying out the Crusade system in the core book. It was a big change from 8th to 9th edition. In 8th edition, it was effectively the narrative side, so it was narrative play, where it wasn't necessarily as balanced. You could do more different bits and pieces, and it was much more about playing the narrative. And they said in 9th, we're going to give you a mechanic to play more narrative battles. And this is what the Crusade system is. The idea behind the Crusade system is that it's like a way of having an ongoing narrative with your army. So a bit like a role-playing game, as it were. You can get into like improving your units through the Crusade system or the role-playing system. And this is where, like, all of the battles we play, for example, are points-based, but this is where the power level comes in. So where you can, although power level is used for simpler games for new players to work out, very quickly a fairly balanced list. This is where it comes in the Crusade as well. You use power levels rather than points to build out a small force, strike force size list, but it's slightly different in terms of makeup. And effectively, you bring it and play against someone else that's also doing the same thing. But the key difference is, before you start the game or getting into it, you effectively have a Crusade roster. Now, it's again, it's a shame, like, it's a bit like Blood Bowl and how that was, where you'd have a team roster and every player that you have can develop, and some of them get injuries and some of them get strengths and stuff like that. And it's the same sort of principle. So you have your starting army list, which is a certain power, normally 50 power level would be what you'd go with. And then as you play the games, so one of the big components about it is after the end of the battle, after the end of the game, you have upkeep, effectively, which is where you go through and right, this unit got taken out. So actually, I've now got to roll on a table in the Crusade books to see whether they get like a battle scar or whether they're okay. And likewise, you've got units that maybe hit their objectives or did something heroic, an action that you were going to take during the game. And if they succeed, you roll on a different table to give them advantage. And it might be that they get, an extra inch to their movement, or they get +1 to hit, or something like that happens to them. And again, you record it on your Crusade sheet so that you've always got this record of what's happened to your units as you go through various battles.
So with that, Shane,
yeah,
regarding rolling for whatever you're going to get, is that a set thing? It's not something you can select for your own, what you would want. You have to roll for it. It's
in the book. It's on a couple of different tables. So you've got like the battle scars table, and then in your independent army books, they'll have different bits and pieces that you can look at. And then alongside that, you also get different bits. So we'll come back to that. So that's like what you would do after the battle in the upkeep phase. One of the things that you do as you get into the games when you're starting them as well is you have, I think they're called requisition points, which is effectively what you can use to buy things like specific Crusade relics, or upgrade the amount of power you can have in your list. So you can spend them, and I think you can never have more than 5 requisition points for your Crusade force. So always one of the bits of advice I've read is, first game out, always spend one of your requisition points, because you're going to get one back for playing the battle anyway. So they're things that they're limited, but they limited to the number you can have 5, but they will do things like, let's say you get a battle scar on one of your characters, you can use requisition points to heal them up, for example, and not take those battle scars. but if you don't have them, you've got to take it anyway. So there's different bits and pieces. There's lots of little mechanics, and they all come pre and post games. The game itself you would play normally anyway. So the actual mechanics of the game don't change. It's more what you do pre and post game. So it's like, you know, as I said, 40k. There's a lot of admin, but people love it. That's why you do it. List building and stuff like that. Reading your codexes, understanding, you know, all of the ramifications of modifiers. It feeds into the idea of what we like about the hobby. So this is just an extension of that. It's not for everyone, but it's definitely something that can work. And I think the nice thing about it is you can get quite narrative about it. So for example, it's like, right, my list for the Space Wolves, for example, I said, right, I'm not going to have any named characters in it. So there's be characters, because like you have, you know, lieutenants have the character keyword, but there won't. Ragnar's not going to be in it. Bjorn's not going to be in it. People like that aren't going to be in it, because, you know, in my head it's like this is a, you know, splinter faction that's gone into the Eye of Terror to hunt for Russ or something like that. You know, that's what they're doing. And as they've gone in there, they've bundled across like a load of nurglings. So it'll be like, right, we'll have a fight. And so they could all be Primaris, or maybe, you know, they're all Primaris, but there's, you know, a squad from the first company in there as well. So that's where the Wolf Guard are in there. And you can be quite narrative with how you play those lists out and develop them. And then the other thing that I quite like about it is it's that ability that then we can all play, like, again, we could all play the same sort of lists and armies over and over again. And, you know, one battle could go one way and will lead to an entirely different result. And then a couple of games later, we could play exactly the same lists, but, you know, they've come back with a couple of battle scars or a couple of modifiers, and it will change the output of that entire battle. And again, you get to record it and see how it develops. The other thing they do with it as well that's quite interesting is that there's like a handicapping system to it as well. So if by that time, you know, the power level is 10 points of difference, then whoever has less ends up with more command points for that game. So they try and balance it out by making sure that if you're fielding a weaker list than someone else, you get more command points. The idea being that, you know, your global command or whatever has said, right, we need to give more resources or more tactical focus to this engagement because they're up against it. And so that's how they try and balance it, so that you go into it with a chance, right? Because you've got more CP to throw at it.
So with the requisition points, how many do you have to accrue them from the beginning? So you start with none, and then you have to at least have one battle to get one, or do you start with an amount?
You start with 5, is my understanding.
Straight away, so you've already got that. You spent that before the battle even straight away.
Yeah, you could.
Okay, cool.
So you could look at that 5, and you could go, right, I'm going to spend 1 to give my whoever your HQ is. You could be like, right, I'm going to spend 1 to give him a relic, Crusade relic.
Oh.
Or I'm going to spend 5 to give myself another 5 power level, or whatever. I can't remember how much you need to spend to up your power level, but you can spend them to up your power level. And then I'm going to take an extra squad of 5 intercessors, or whatever the equivalent would be in power level.
Yeah. And
then, you know, at your first match, you could be going 55 power level versus someone that's still only got 50. But if at the end of that, let's say you spent 4 of them, you had 1 left, but 3 of your units got taken out, which means you'd have to roll for battle scars, and they pick them up. You can only use that requisition point to wipe off a battle scar for 1 of those units, because once they've got it, they've got it. So it's a balance of how many of those requisition points do you keep for healing your units at the end of the battle versus improving your army before it starts.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So you could have like someone could have a bigger army than you, power level wise, but some of your characters would have a warlord trait and maybe a relic that you've spent your money on. Yeah. So it looked like it was uneven, but actually you've got stronger units within that, so it would be still even. Yeah, that makes sense.
And if it was that, you would get additional command points to spend in the battle because of that difference in power level.
All right, cool. This sounds good, man. Sounds interesting. I can't wait to get started.
Imagine the games are a bit quicker, aren't they? Because you're using less models, or do the dynamics work different during the game?
No, that's what I mean. The actual core mechanics are exactly the same. So the actual game itself, like again, you'd roll off the your mission, what you're doing. Like you'd use the Crusade missions specifically, but you effectively do whatever you like in that regard.
Yeah.
As I said, and they would start off a bit quicker because 50 power is about 1,000 points.
Right.
Depending on how you picked your units, sometimes it might be less than 1,000, sometimes it might be over. But it's the idea is that you're using your power rather than your points in this instance. And then the other thing is, like, as I said, some people might go, you know what, I want a character in there, but those characters can never improve. So if you've got a named character in, well, let's say I did take Ragnar, for example, and he got to the end and he had done all of the bits and pieces that he needed to do to get improvement, he can't. He has to stay at that level. Whereas if it was like a captain or something like that, he'd done a load and, like, he can roll on the tables to improve. Whereas named characters can't. They're just stuck at that point, which is why it encourages you to kind of take your vanilla units, as it were, your unnamed units, and almost create the story yourself. So like my lieutenant dude that we looked at in the last podcast, who I said was going to be like the HQ for the command force of the Wolves, for example. He might have a couple of really good battles, and as he goes, he's going to earn himself a name on my little sheet and turn himself into a someone that's got a bit of a story behind it, as opposed to just taking a character that's got an imposed GW story to him.
Yeah,
I can't wait
the idea of that.
Sorry, go on, John.
I was just because I've put no like for which I've not really looked out, but just like for this out, I'd love to have Felfius head an army of just pure scum. I just think that'd be great.
There's the name for your Crusade force, pure scum.
Pure scum. Yeah. I think that'd be really cool having him just lead. Like I was just literally briefly looking at like spreaders of disease and all this stuff, just to add more to it, like and chaos boons and bits and pieces, just to make them, like, every time you see them, they're just like the disgusting contagions they're going to have will be different. That's what I mean.
We've paid for this rule set. It's in all our core books. It's in all of our codexes.
Yeah.
We're not using it, so we're getting shortchanged at the moment. We may as well start using it to use the full gamut.
Yeah.
How far does it actually go, though? Do you have like an end in mind, or is it?
I think it's one of the, because you've got to be fairly realistic with it. For example, so your Crusade force, you're never going to be able to play like a open war, eternal war game, because it's not done on points, and all of those little bits that you get on your characters, they're for Crusade rules, if that makes sense. It's not necessarily for your standard game. So I mean, obviously you could agree with someone and say, yeah, we're just going to use up Crusade forces because they're pretty evenly balanced and so on and so forth. You could do that, but the idea is that you play it within the Crusade system, so that gives it the balance. And it really comes down to how you want to play it, right? Because you could say, right, you could put league structures and stuff like that around it and say, right, we're going to play 10 games and we're going to call it again, you whack the narrative on it, right? So you've got like Warzone, Charadon. You've got these various war zones that happen at the moment that are officially sort of licensed, but we could, as Iron and Ceramite, we could come up with our own war zone narrative and say, right, everyone's going to get 5 battles against everyone else. That's how long the Crusaders. I mean, there's 5 of us, everyone playing each other 5 times. That's a lot of battles.
Yeah.
By the end of that, you're going to have a fairly different list to what you started out as. You might not even want to go that long. It might just be a couple of battles each for the first one. But it allows you to tell stories about your army as opposed to just fight them once and then tweak them and change them. It's like they grow across the amount of time you're playing. And and the limitations are really just how far you want to go. You go, right, we're gonna. I mean, 5 games each might be a bit. 5 games against everyone might be too much, but you might want to go like, okay, we'll do 2 or 3 where everyone plays everyone else that many times, and then we'll see who ends up on what power, you know, which armies got a kicking, you know, we can talk about it more in a narrative sense, and then at the end of it, you can go, right, well, this has actually formed a bit of a story, and it might be that, you know, the Namakaj Crusade at Templars started off getting a pasting, and then what I didn't realise in the background, Dave learned about his book a bit more, and then suddenly, you know,
literally, I've got it out in front of me now. So
yeah, there'll be a turning point, right, where you know you smushed like a load of a thousand sun warband that happened to stumble into Templar territory, and that was the turning point for your crusade. So it just enables you, as I said, it's much more of a narrative engine because you stick with the same units and army over a longer period of time.
I like that. I think maybe if we look to say in the new year, start, like you said, a league of between us, if we agree to do, I don't know, to start, to get a hang of it, 2 games against each other. So obviously between the 5 of us, and then just see where we are, and then we can develop from there just to get a taste of it, because I think that sounds pretty cool. And
it as I said, even when you sit down and you do like the battle with, like, we're all going to play each other separate times, because that's, I was saying this to Tom, like, you know, it might be one week you're like, you know what, I really don't fancy getting the old Crusade out, let's just have a 2,000 point dust up. That's like, that's fine, you know, you just do a different list, that's all it is. But you might be like, no, really want to get the Crusade back and going, let's see how we go. And like, it could be, you know, that like, I don't play John for 3 or 4 games, and then suddenly play your Death Guard Crusade force, and I'll be like, oh, what's happened to these boys then? And you take me through, like, oh, well, in the first match this happened, he did really well and he got this, but then this, and so, you know, you learn the story of what's happened with this force before you even play it.
I like that idea. I've not, obviously, again, been concentrating on learning the game we've been playing, so I've not spent any time looking at Crusade and didn't really pay it any mind, but actually it sounds really good, like something I could really get stuck doing. Start playing what's it called, general manager mode.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Raw versus SmackDown, and just getting into that, I used to love that. So this is, I'm definitely keen.
I think you know, and we can do stuff with it. Like if you go back, it's almost like if you go back to one of our original pods in the time long ago now, where we all talked about our first 1,000 point list and we put them all up. There you go. That's where we start again. It's like, right, this is my 50 power level Crusade. What do we all think? And then go from there.
Oh, there you go. That's the theme for next podcast. I know you guys have already, you and Tom have already done a couple. So,
but I love list building. Like, I'll make them. Like, I'll build a list for anything. One thing I haven't done is I haven't done a Necron Crusade force yet. Because as I said, I might not bother. It might be Space Wolves or Thousand Suns.
Yeah.
I'd love to play the Thousand Suns. I really think that would be so narratively cool with some Marines against them. That'd be brilliant.
Yeah, I do really want to get it done. Like I said, I've got several lists. I know how much I've got to get painted. I've got to get it done.
The problem is, like, because of how into the narrative you are, Shane, you're going to end up making these Thousand Suns and not leaving the house because you'll be going to doing Space Wolves and Thousand Suns.
I'll just be playing that. Across my
just be you.
Yeah.
There'll be paper all around, like plastered all around the house with strings going all over the place. It'll be like a madhouse.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing your Wolfie names for them as well that you come up with, Shane.
Yeah, I looked at your Crusade force that we shared on the group the other day, and I was like, how has he given his captain a name? Like, that's why I asked what list building thing you used.
Yeah.
And then I was like, right, I might start doing this. I'm gonna have to start thinking of some good Wolfie names.
Yeah.
Does it not have a name builder in the back of your?
There is a name
generator.
Indeed. Yeah, there is.
I've got one as well in my Imperial Fistfight, but I refuse to use it though. I'm like, no, I'm not going to copy them. I'll come up with my own.
Come up with the
I'm
own.
unique.
I do look at it and I go, yeah, actually, I'm going to try and do that. And then every now and then I'm like, oh, yeah, but how many names are there? It'll just be like the Swedish football team. They'll all be called something son.
Something son. Yeah. Mansfieldicus son.
Unfortunately, I don't think the Mansfield name lends itself to Vikings.
Oh, now, John, I'm excited to start doing this now. It's annoying because the other 400 things I'm excited to get on with as well. It's just adding to the work. It'll be good though. It'll be really good.
Well, we'll definitely in January we'll set something up. We'll get everyone round to my gaming table. I'll separate it into two, and then maybe we'll start the Crusade all together.
Yeah,
that'd be nice.
that sounds good.
First game together be quite good.
Cool. Well, and then the challenge then for the next pod, have a Crusade list or two ready to go, and we'll share them, and Shane can tell us how wrong mine is.
I don't think
it's
you
50
can go
power
too
level.
wrong. So it's 50 power level. So I would, I actually found it easier to use Battle Scribe to do it because it shows you the power level as well, like the Warhammer.
How many points is that roughly?
It's about 1,000. It will probably be 20 points either side of that, because the key thing with power level is like, don't be afraid of loading your units up, like as it were. Like you can give them like any of the extras they can take, and it doesn't really affect their power level. But like if you've got a 5-man squad and you turn it into a 6-man squad, in points in points that'd just be the points for the single model, but in power level it doubles. So you got to that's how you kind of you can play around with it.
Cool. Right, so before we go, Tom, do you want to just remind everyone about the painting competition, which is in full swing?
Yeah, cool, no worries. So obviously last week we told you all about the painting competition we was going to be hosting. It's in full swing now. We've had a lot of decent entries so far. So yeah, enjoyed looking at them. So remember, you've still got till the end of December to get in touch with us on Instagram and send us your pictures. Obviously, all the descriptions are on Instagram of what you have to do in order to enter, which is just follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also leave a comment on our previous video from last week, which was obviously the first time we announced that we was going to be hosting the competition. And yeah, good luck with your entries for the future. I look forward to seeing you in our little clique.
And just so they know what video to click on, what's the competition called?
So it was the Artificer's Quest. That is the competition name, and that is the video you need to comment on YouTube.
Brilliant. Awesome. Right. So Instagram, Iron and Ceramite, Twitter, Iron and Ceramite, Facebook, Iron and Ceramite, Patreon. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Check out the podcast. Watch and listen, whatever you want to do. And obviously, if you're buying your hobby stuff, go to Element Games, click on the link in the video below. And every penny we make from you guys, as thanks, we'll obviously go back into the channel to improve everything. And that's it. Exterminatus. See you later. I'm going to bed.
Okay. Very good. Very good.
As always, we would like to thank you for listening to our Iron and Ceramite podcast. If you liked us, then you can also find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and any other good podcast services. Just remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Iron and Ceramite. You're joining myself, John, Shane, and Tommy for this, and Dave. I'll start
I'll
that
go
again.
fuck myself then.
Right, so I'll start that again. Sorry, Dave. You're at the bottom, so I just skipped it completely. Right. Ready for round 2 or 3, whatever we're on now?
Or
Are you wearing leggings?
me?
Yeah.
Leggings? Why? Fucking jogging
His legs.
What? You know what?
It just look when you put your knee up, it just looks like you're wearing a pair of leggings.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm just going to get some gloves. Honestly, it's freezing in there. Hang on.
Turn the heat on. He called you an old man for talking about cost sweet, so he won't put the bloody heating on. Maybe he can't afford it after buying the airbrush.
I've lived here for 8 years and I've only ever put the heating on once, and that was when I had people over for Christmas Day. So I'm not going to start now.
Ebenezer Tom.
Why?
Hey?
But
Because
why?
I used to be fat, didn't I? Remember, I was massive, and the heat and like the cold.
I completely forgot that the first 10 years that I knew you, you were fucking obese.
Yeah. So
And that-
I always used to be warm, and now all of a sudden I'm stuck in that way. I'm like, I know, I'm not going to put it on. I'm not going to fucking do this instead.
You really are a mad person, aren't you?
Only sometimes.
But, that's all right. So shall we move on from one game that we haven't quite mastered to another version of the game that I have no idea of what the hell I'm
pause
doing?
it for a minute so I can go for a piss.
Yeah.
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 This is weird.
You started
Yeah.
it. I'm going to read the next part of Mechanicum as well.
Yeah, so I was looking at that the other day. I was thinking, I must listen to the next bit for whenever we decide we're going to do it.
Yeah. It's not too bad because we've got obviously now we'll have, because it came out today, so we've got 2 weeks. Then the part 3 will be up, so we've got quite a while anyway.
Oh, okay. All right, plenty of time.
I don't know when we'll do the next pod because obviously I imagine it's going to be quite tricky, not only with work, but we've got Christmas plans to contend with now, haven't we, for the next
Yeah,
couple
it
of
all
weeks?
depends on what Christmas looks like for people. Because as I said, like I'm obviously Christmas Day and Boxing Day will probably be out of contention. But
Maybe we should do a Christmas Day one just to piss the other halves off massively.
we're all all
But
pissed up after Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
I'm going on a call.
Take your fucking presents upstairs.
Yeah, I could see that one going down really well.
Yeah.
And what are you bringing on the when are we playing? Is it 8?
It's the 12th, I believe.
12.
So I will be bringing. I think it's going to be the Necrons again.
Ooh,
I think it will be. I always, as again, one of the reasons why I like playing the bad guy, one of the bad guys. There's no bad guys in 40k, but you know what I mean. Is again, it's more narrative. I think Marine on Marine is fine, but I do prefer. That's also one of the reasons why I went for Thousand Sons as well, because it's just a nice narrative bad guy.
yeah, I'm looking forward to playing you Thousand Sons.
I've got to. I said I've got the Demon Prince. I now got to start doing the others. I've got like 5 Prime Zangor ready to go, but I haven't even touched them yet. So we'll see. But shit, yeah. Hopefully, once I get into it, I'll get a bit more infused. I was just looking. I was looking at the number of little paint pots I had out to paint these aggressors, and there was about 20 different pots. And I was like, how are there this many colours for these Space Marines? How have I got this many pots out just to paint these fuckers? But it's all the little bits like, the green gems and the bloody yellow shoulder pads and red rope.
Mine out. And I'm like, when I'm doing a model and I look at a bit of like white plastic, I'm like, what do I want to put in it? I just pick a random colour sometimes. I'm like, oh, that looks all right. Hopefully that'll work. And like 99% of it has come off, but yeah, my desk's covered in paint pots at the minute.
Yeah.
Right, should we let's crack on because I've got to go work in 6 hours.
Yeah.
Dave, why don't you just put the heating on, mate?
Funny, isn't you? How'd you get so funny?
Such an old man.
I took my hoodie off, thinking, oh, it's quite warm, but it's fucking freezing in here because the radiator's not on. So
Oh.
out there in the fucking hallway, it's bloody lovely, but hallway where I went for a piss.
It's just on the floor. Surprise. And you can blame Rozzy now. Look what he's done.
Oh, he's a fucking little shit, isn't he? Just pissing in his bed.
Right. Anything else to add on to gaming before we?
No.
Tom, just because it's been a week, do you want to quickly remind everyone about the painting competition, which will be in full steam ahead now?
Yes. Go and check us out on Instagram for the painting competition. We're gonna hang on. Do you know what do you actually want to say? When does this one go out?
So this will be a week. So it would have been a week by the time this goes
I
up.
don't know what would have happened by then in the competition. We might change something, and I might be saying it wrong.
Well, just do a reminder that it's happening. Then.
I want to say, just to let you know, guys, the painting competition is still going on.
Well, if you want it, well,
Yeah, just we definitely don't film these all at the same time. And
you've got to.
Dave's got a jumper on as well. We can just
You've got to plug it
Hey,
in.
I'll change quickly.
Someone else might have stumbled onto the channel and gone a painting competition.
I think what to say. Hold on.
Just really quickly,
Okay.
go check the video out from last week that we all mumbled through.
Go on then, mate. Go again with it.
And just so they know what video to click on, what's the competition called?
I actually can't remember. While I was saying that whole thing, I was trying to
The
think.
Artificer's Quest, wasn't it?
Artificer's Quest. So
Right.
Artificer's Quest is the competition.
It's going well. How well has it gone? Bloody hell. Right. Check us out on Instagram.
Just say what competition? What's the competition name again? There you go.
No, that's staying in.
Oh,
No, all right, fine. And what was the competition's name again for everyone, so they know what video to click on?